Family, welcome to the Practical Purpose Podcast. It's your boy, we back. It's been a little minute. I'm making sure we straight. It's been a little minute. A lot that's going on, a lot that's taking place, but we back at it. We back in the dungeon. I see Pecan Tan is in the building. Pecan Tan, you don't never leave me out here by myself. Pecan Tan, that's one of my moderators right there. She keep me straight. We're back. What I need you to do, go on and share, subscribe. Hit the notification button. Go on and share this out right now. I put a challenge out there for people to share this with educators. We're going back to school. If you haven't gone back to school yet, you're going to be going back to school in the next few weeks. Share this with some educators that you know. Even now, take the link, text it out, send it to them, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever. Share out the link because we're going to be talking about belief. We're going to be talking about what you believe. And one of the things that we're going to kind of hone in here on or talk about is the fact that education has a lot to do with what we believe, right? We're going to do a lot of talking about education tonight. And so one thing that I want you to do is to share this out with educators. Even if you're watching the replay, share it out to some educators and see what they think. Talk to them about what we got going on. Listen, I've been on sabbatical, vacation. I've been everywhere. And so I'm glad to be back in the building. My brother, Sump, is in the building. Y'all go in and share. Get some more people in. The water is fine. Get some more people in. Listen, there's been a lot going on. I know y'all saw I don't know what they even calling it now. What happened on the boat in Alabama. Listen, I am not a promoter of violence in any way. But you know, I think some things happened on that boat that showed a lot. It showed America a lot of things. There's two things in particular that I think it showed America. One, we have this implicit bias that we're going to talk about implicit bias tonight when we talk about belief. But we have this unconscious belief oftentimes, or a lot of people have it, that, you know, that Black people start everything. Like we started. And so I'm so glad that it was videotaped so we could see that in this situation, in this case, it wasn't us. That's the first thing. In this case, it wasn't us, right? The second thing about that whole situation was that we saw African Americans come together for something, right? That's one thing that we always knock each other on, is that we can't come together. And we saw in that video that Black people came together. It was a sight to see. Black people came together. Yeah, Pecan Tan says, yeah, that's a stereotype against us, is that we don't come together for anything. But we saw the bat signal, right? We saw the hat go up. It was kind of like on training day when they start clapping the pigeons. We saw the hat go up and everybody got in formation, right? And so, like I say, I'm not a promoter of violence in any way, but I do believe that Malcolm X would be proud of us in this moment. All right, let some more people in. Let some more people in. We got a lot of people coming in tonight. Oh man, this is good. A lot of people coming in tonight. We're going to be talking about belief. We're going to be talking about belief. PK and Tan says, I hope we continue to stick together in other moments as well. Yeah, we have to. We have to stick together. We have to figure out how to be on one accord on a lot of things that are meaningful, right? And it's only fitting that we're talking about education. We're talking about going back to school, and because we're talking about that, that's one of the things that we need to be on the same page about in our communities, especially as African Americans, right? And so this show, we do have a question of the day um, dealing with education, because we know it's time to go back to school if you haven't yet, or you're getting ready to go back to school. And I'm an educator, but we've been back um, since mid-July, right? And so one of the questions that was sent in for the question of the day is, what characteristics did your favorite educator have? And one thing I want you to think about when you think about your favorite educator, we always think about just the teachers. Now, teachers, in my opinion, have the hardest role in education, hands down. It's not close, in my opinion. Principals do; they have a hard job. Counselors have a hard job. Assistant principals have hard jobs, but teachers have the hardest role in education. So, but I don't want you to just think about an influential teacher. Don't limit it to that. I want you to think about the characteristics of an educator um, that has been influential in your life. It could be a coach, it could be a principal, assistant principal. It could be anyone that was in that schoolhouse that had a influential or had meaning in your life. Like, what were some of the characteristics that they exuded and exhibited? I know for me, I'll talk about my principal. uh, my principal, Mr. Ken Richardson, back in the day, who was my principal as a student, and then he hired me and was my boss, right? And some of the things that he exhibited, man, he was the one. He was the principal that he wore a suit every day. But he was in the gym with us. He played ball with us. He knew our names. He knew our parents' names. He called every student by name. He was the first administrator that I saw that called every student by name, right? It wasn't come here, boy. You know, he knew your name. He knew your parents' names. And that's one thing I try to do is I try to know each one of my students by name. If I can't remember their name, I remember a characteristic about them that we joke about or that we talk about. But he knew even your parents' names. And that was amazing to me. That was amazing to me. He believed in his students as well, right? Richardson believed in us so much so when I came back, I wasn't even looking for a job at his school. I went to visit him one day, and he saw me and saw that I was trying to get back into education, and he gave me a job on the spot. Right, gave me a job on the spot because he knew the character that I had because I was one of his students. And he knew my family. He could still call my family by name. Even to today, he could call them by name. So I want you to think about that, especially my educators. Think about your favorite educator growing up. And it's a quote that says, you need to be the educator that you needed when you were in school. And we've got to do that for our students. We've got to do that for our students. We've got to be the educators that our students need, and we take that from the characteristics of the educators that influenced us. We take that from those characteristics. So if you see on the clip, I put some people on there. I put Joe Clark. Y'all see Joe Clark right there. Joe Clark, and that's who the person I mentioned, Mr. Richardson. That's who he reminded me of. He was like Joe Clark. Like, he was hard nosed. He didn't play games, but you knew he cared about you. You knew he loved you. Um, y'all see Abbott Elementary. I even got Steve Harvey and them on there. You know, there are so many characteristics even in these shows and movies, and they're in our school buildings every day, and it doesn't get highlighted enough. It doesn't get highlighted, the work that's being done in our schools is not highlighted enough, right? And so tonight we're going to talk about belief. And the reason why I put the back to school emblem on there is because you need to understand that no matter if you're a teacher, no matter if you're a principal, no matter what your role is in a school, or if you're not in a school at all, you have influence on young people. And because of your influence on young people, you have to take that serious. I see in the comments, I see dedication, tough love, right? Dedication and tough love. Listen, it's an interesting thing for me because I've worked at, when I first started teaching, I worked with some teachers who taught me, right? And then I went into administration and I supervised some teachers who taught me. And even now at my third school as an administrator, I'm supervising someone who taught me, right? And it's just interesting how things change. Coach Goodman says influence. That's leadership, man. Influence. And so you that's powerful because we have to understand no matter if you're in education or not. I know a lot of people that's chiming in are in education. You've got influence. People are watching what you do, and especially children. Children. When I say children, I'm talking about all children. I'm not talking about just 3, 4, 5 year olds, right? Even your high schoolers. They're watching how you do things. They're watching how you treat people. They're watching your conversation. All right. You can't take that for granted. All right. All right. So that's the question of the day. Going in, cost more people in, share. I see some more comments. Pecan Tan says representation. Seeing someone who looked like me, that's critical. That's critical. That's critical even today because schools look different. If you haven't been inside a school, schools look different than they did in the early 2000s, in the late 90s. Schools look different. They're so much more diverse, right? Right. You may walk into a class of 20 students and you might have 6 or 7 of them that don't even speak English in the school, right? And you may have that same dynamic with your staff, right? You'll have that same dynamic where you have people who are not from this country, don't understand the customs yet. They don't understand necessarily how we do things, but they're here for a better opportunity. And we've got to understand that because school doesn't look like what it used to, does not mean that we change our approach and how we influence students, right? We've got to learn how to influence all of our students. So that's good. That's good. We're going to get into what we're talking about tonight. What do you believe? We're going to get into that in a few seconds. Listen, y'all keep sending these comments. I see some more that I want to read. You have to be culturally sensitive, right? That's critical. Being culturally sensitive is critical. And being culturally sensitive doesn't just deal with ethnicity. It deals with experiences. Because just because I look like you don't mean I can relate to you. Just because I look like you doesn't mean that I have the same experiences that you have. In fact, I have students in my school who are growing up and they look just like me, but they don't have the same experiences as my children. Right. And so just because we may look alike doesn't mean that we can relate to one another, because cultural relevance deals more with experience than it does ethnicity. Right. Right. Cultural relevant, being relevant to your students is paramount to your success and paramount to their success. All right. All right. So that's good stuff. That's good stuff. We're going to go jump in to what we're going to talk about tonight, because we're not going to be on too long, but we're going to go jump into what we're going to talk about in a second.
1, 2. Yeah. 1, 2. We living life with a practical purpose, making every day worth it. Live from the dungeon, we go deeper than the surface, leading with wisdom from the street to the churches. Searching, what seeking you find? We speaking right to your mind. The sun ain't fighting to shine, no diamonds either. Light hit the Jews and turn fools to believers. Steady making moves and teaching truth to the leaders. Use all these tools just so you can supersede us. It's ill. Yeah. Say 1, 2. Yeah. Uh-huh. So 1, 2. Uh-huh. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. For real.
All right, here we go. Here we go. We're talking about belief. We're talking about belief. Belief. Belief is critical to your success, right? It doesn't matter what area of life you're talking about. Maybe your professional life, maybe your marriage, maybe your fatherhood, your motherhood, whatever you're talking about. Belief is going to be critical to your success, right? And I've said on this show plenty of times, and I have to I've come to a place where I have to adjust what I've been teaching, because I've even read to you all a book by Simon Sinek that says start with why, right? And I gave you all the teaching that you should begin everything with your purpose and with why, right? And I kind of got arrested on that, right? Because your why is critical, your why is important, but if you don't know what you believe, you're going to find yourself teetering and tottering every time something new comes out, right? You can know your why and not understand the relevance or how foundational your belief system has to be in order for you to be successful. And what I find, especially in education, especially as I coach leaders and talk to leaders and work with leaders, is that they can articulate their why. They can articulate why they come to work, why they do what they do, but they can't fully articulate what it is that they believe. And you've got to know what you believe. Oftentimes, when we hear the term belief, we immediately talk about, we take it in a religious connotation, right? We talk about religion. We think about religion and we talk about belief systems with regard to deity and religion. Right. But you've got to have a belief system that is rooted, and a belief system that's not just about religious beliefs. It's about everything in your life. Every component in your life goes back to what you believe. Right. You're going to work hard because you have a belief system. You're going to do the things that you do because you have a belief system. Listen, what is belief? A belief is a subjective attitude that something is true. Let me say that again. It's a subjective attitude that something is true. Now, when I read that, I couldn't quite fully grasp subjective attitude, but subjective attitude is a mental state of having a stance or opinion. When you believe something, you take a stance on it. When you believe something, when you truly believe something, you have an opinion about it. And what we find so often in this time that we're living in is that people will say they believe something, but they don't exhibit that belief system in their lifestyle. Right? And we all struggle with that. We all struggle with that to some degree. We say one thing with our mouth, and then we live something completely opposite or antithetical to what it is that we say that we believe. Listen, Beth Moore says this. I'm not a huge Beth Moore fan, but she said this, and I thought this was powerful. She says the true determining factor of our belief system is not what we're saying, but how we're living. Let me say that again. The true determining factor of our belief system is not what we're saying, it's how we are living. Yeah, we say a lot of things out of our mouths that we don't really flesh out in our lifestyle. And so it's critical that you understand what you believe, because what you believe, we're going to get to it, is going to influence the things that you do in your life. What you believe is going to influence the things that you do in your life. And the first part of this is going to be very practical. I'm not going to try to go into any type of scripture or biblical anything dealing with scripture, but I want to talk to you just practically about why it's important to know what you believe. Listen, my dad said this to me years ago. He don't know he said it, or he don't remember. I know he don't remember. He said, son, you can believe the wrong thing for a long time. He said, you can believe the wrong thing. See, what the issue is that many of us believe the wrong stuff, but we're very sincere about it. We're very sincere about the wrong belief. And sometimes we have to be willing to sit back and take a look at what we truly believe because we have to know that you could be believing the wrong thing. Belief will be the foundation by which you build your values, your actions, and your philosophies. It's the foundation that you believe, that you build your values, your action, and your philosophy. You know, when I coach people, when I talk to people, and sometimes people talk to me about interviews that they're going to, and we coach them through interviews. And one thing that I always tell them is, when people ask you, tell us about yourself, they don't really want to hear about your wife and your kids and your husband and what you do in your personal time. They want to know what you believe. And so you have to have a belief statement, because what it is they want to know how what you believe is going to take their organization to the next level. So when I coach people and I tell them, when you're interviewing for a job and they say, tell us about yourself, you need to tell them what you believe. What's your philosophy about whatever it is that you're applying for? Right? With educators, if someone asks me, what do I believe about education? I have a belief statement. If they ask me, what do I believe about leadership? I have a belief statement. Right? And I always can articulate that belief. The problem is, I oftentimes don't reevaluate what I believe to help me make better decisions moving forward. You've got to be what, listen, I don't care if you're talking about religion. I don't care if you're talking about professionalism. I don't care what you're talking about. You have to be willing to reevaluate what it is that you believe. See, and that's the problem. I don't want to get there too fast, but that's the problem oftentimes in our religious circles, especially in church circles, is we're so dead set sometimes on what we believe that if someone brought a scripture and articulated it properly to us, and it's totally against what it is that we believe, we don't accept that. We've got to be willing to reevaluate your belief. That doesn't mean you have to change it, but you have to be willing to reevaluate what it is that you believe. A belief is not just an idea the mind possesses, it is an idea that possesses the mind. That's from Robert Belton. He says a belief is not just an idea the mind possesses, it is idea that possesses the mind. Believing and belief is critical to your success professionally, spiritually, emotionally, physically. At the bottom, at the foundation of everything that you do, you're doing it because you have a belief about something. And you've got to be willing to evaluate it. Listen, I put the call out for educators to be here. Before you stand before students in August, before you stand before students the first day of school, you need to know what you believe. You need to know what you believe about them. You need to know what it is that you believe about education. You need to know what it is that you believe about yourself as an educator, because students have a funny way of getting out of you what you really believe. And if you don't stand tall in the times that we're living in, especially in education, for what it is that you believe, you're going to struggle eventually, and you're going to be teetering and tottering with every, scripture says, wind of doctrine, right? Everything that comes along that's new, you're going to be moving back and forth because you're not sure of what it is that you believe, right? We tend to place more value on a belief we like than a fact that we hate. I'm gonna say that again. We tend to place more value on a belief that we like than a fact that we hate. Yeah, so we've been taught a certain belief system, a certain belief, and we fall in love with that belief that we're unwilling to deal with facts. Right? You've got to be willing to deal with something that may be opposite of what you believe. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be willing to accept that you can believe the wrong thing and be sincere about it. Right? What is it that you believe? That's the question for the night, for the next 30 minutes. So what is it that you believe in? In your mind, I want you to put some different areas of your life. Maybe it's marriage, maybe it's fatherhood, maybe it's motherhood, maybe it's education, maybe it's professionally. What is it that you really believe about what you're giving so much energy to every day? Right? Because you're giving out a lot of energy, but at the end of the day, I was in a leadership conference about 2 weeks ago, right? 300 principals, assistant principals, district people, and we talked about the why we're doing what we're doing, and that's good. It was really good, and it's critical. One thing that I thought in my mind, because y'all know my mind is strange, I thought if I asked these 200, 300 people, what is it that they believe about teaching, about educating, about students? I wonder if they could articulate it. I wonder if they can tell me what it is that they truly believe, because at the end of the day, what we believe, what we do, all trickles back to what it is that we believe. Sam, my brother, literally, believing the wrong thing once you find out the truth can be hard to pivot from. Man, listen, that's a whole 30 minutes right there. Believing the wrong thing once you find out the truth can be hard to pivot from, and we're going to talk about that just a little bit. But that's so true, because in so many areas of our life we've been indoctrinated, right? And I want y'all to expand your mind. I know I got a lot of church folk on here, but I want y'all to expand your mind. I'm not just talking about religion. We've been indoctrinated in so many areas of our life that when we are faced with the truth, we don't want to change. We don't want to pivot. We don't want to repent. We don't want to go in a different direction, because what we may have believed is wrong or it's not applicable, right? So I want to talk about three types of belief. Three types. Now, there are a lot of different types of belief, but I want to talk about three types of belief. The first type is behavioral beliefs. Behavioral beliefs. Behavioral beliefs is when your attitude influences how you behave. Behavioral beliefs is when your attitude influences how you behave. Let me give you an example of a behavioral belief. If I see a snake in my vicinity, I'm going to run. Right? That's a behavioral belief, because I believe innately that the snake is what? Is dangerous. Right? A behavioral belief is when we act, or when we take action based off of something that we believe. PK say, I'm in her world now. Behavioral belief. That's when we take action based off what we believe. Now, it may not be true, right? The snake could be harmless, but I believe that the snake is dangerous, so I run when I'm in that vicinity. We have behavioral beliefs. And oftentimes, anytime we're faced with adversity in our lives, many of us, we run from it because we innately believe that adversity is going to harm us, hurt us, or kill us, when really adversity is designed to build us. So if we were to examine our belief about adversity, we would embrace it instead of running from it. Right? I've given the analogy before about being on the beach. I've been on some beaches in the last couple of weeks. Being on the beach, right? If I'm on the beach and the waves get high and they start coming towards us, I'm running away from it. That's a behavior belief, because I believe that those waves could drown me, right? But a surfer would take his surfboard and take that same wave and go towards what I ran from, because behaviorally he believes that that wave is an opportunity. And so a behavioral belief is an attitude that influences how we behave. All right? Behavioral beliefs. That's the first one. I term changing our behavior when we are faced with adversity. Right. Here's the second one. Unconscious beliefs. Now, granted, there are a lot more beliefs. I'm only going to hit three. Unconscious beliefs. Unconscious belief has another term. We call it implicit bias. Right? Y'all know what implicit bias is? It's when you innately just have a belief that you don't even realize you have. right? It's like what I talked about earlier about what happened in Alabama, right? There are some people that believe that automatically that black people just start stuff, right? We started every time it's black people that start stuff, right? That's an implicit bias. We all have it. We all have it. And until it's an unconscious belief. Until you address that, until you face the reality that your implicit bias or your unconscious belief is needs to change or needs to shift, you're not going to change it. We all have those unconscious beliefs, right? And normally those things are typically untrue in every situation. We kind of broaden it. We try to categorize everybody. It's like if I said, you know what, Dr. Williams, do you like black people? I can't answer that. I don't know all of them, right? But implicitly, we have an unconscious belief that we like some people and we don't like some people, or we do like some people, or there are things that we see in people in a select few that we brought in to make it true of everyone, right? And we have those unconscious beliefs. Listen, for my educators, you cannot walk into your classroom with negative implicit bias or unconscious beliefs towards certain types of students and expect to be able to reach them. I'm gonna say that again. Educators, you can't walk into your classroom or your school with implicit bias that you haven't addressed or negative unconscious beliefs that you haven't addressed and expect to reach all of your students. You can't do it. You can't do it. You've got to address those unconscious beliefs. Right? You've got to address those unconscious beliefs. So you got behavior beliefs, you've got unconscious beliefs, and the one that's most common is conscious beliefs. These are beliefs that have been developed in us. Right? Right? These are beliefs that have over time been taught to us, and we believe them and we believe them and we believe them. And oftentimes, Sam, these are the beliefs that are so difficult for us to get away from. They're conscious. They've been embedded in us since we were kids, since we were children, since we started in the church, since we started in the mosque, since we started in the public education system, right? These are conscious. These are things that we just believe because we've been taught to believe them. Listen, Columbus founded America, right? Conscious belief that we were taught over and over and over until we just believed it until we found out enough information to know it wasn't true. Right? So conscious beliefs are beliefs that have been developed. I want you to keep that in your mind because there are conscious beliefs can be very good. Conscious beliefs can be very good, and they can also be the hardest beliefs to change in your life. Three types of beliefs that we're talking about: behavioral, unconscious, and conscious. Listen, what shapes our beliefs? What is it that shapes our beliefs? I'm gonna give you four things that shape our beliefs. The first one is background, how you're raised. You believe a certain way about everything in your life a lot of times because you were raised a certain way. You saw some things as a child, good and bad. Listen, the way I try to treat my children, the way I try to treat my family, treat my wife is based oftentimes off the upbringing, off the background that I saw growing up. And oftentimes there are things that I saw growing up that I'm not going to do. And it's based off of my belief system, right? But background and upbringing, PK10 says upbringing, influences or shapes our belief system. And oftentimes when you get married, this has a vital role because there are some ways that I was raised that I tried to raise my kids that way. And my wife would come and say, I wasn't raised like that. We got to do this, and you're saying they can't do it. I wasn't raised like that. Right. And so your background, the way you were raised, your upbringing can influence your belief. Sam says the way we are raised, I think, is the biggest influencer of what we believe. Right. Right. It very well could be. right? And I think that would that could change depending on how you were raised. But yeah, I would agree that that's probably the biggest influencer on what we believe, what we were taught growing up by parents, by older siblings, by church, by whatever it may be. Even sometimes the way we see people treated as children in our background in our life determines how we treat people. It determines also those unconscious beliefs. It creates that implicit bias within us oftentimes, and we don't know until we're old enough to really examine that we had some beliefs about certain people or the way certain people look that wasn't true, but it was based off of what we knew. Right? I agree with that. Here's the second thing that shapes our beliefs is education. Now, when I say education, I'm not confining that to school, right? What it is that you're taught shapes what it is you believe, right? And school has a major role to play in that, but it's not the only time that you get educated. I tell people all the time, our kids are going to learn. We just need to determine in the school system what it is they're learning. They're going to learn something, right? If you don't believe that, pull up TikTok, give it to your son and daughter, and give them 10 minutes and watch what they create. They're going to learn something. We have to be the determining factor of what it is that we expose them to so that they can learn. So background shapes our beliefs. Education shapes our belief. Life experiences shape our belief, right? Some things happen to us that determine how we believe about certain issues. Certain things happen to us, right? I know sometimes in the counseling circles, which I'm not a counselor, but sometimes things can be in a person's mind that never even happened to them. It could be in their mind, right? And then there are some things that have happened to us that we have put up a mental block that we don't even remember happened to us. Oftentimes, your life experiences will determine your belief, right? Without being biblical yet, without going into scripture a whole lot, God will use our life experiences to help us believe. He uses that, right? You think Jesus couldn't raise Lazarus without going there? he needed to be there to do it physically. So and it's so crazy because in that text in John 11, it says that he did it so that they would believe. God uses our life experiences so that we will have a belief system, right? Right. And here's the last one. What shapes our beliefs? Society and religion. I put those as one. They're not the same, but I just put them as one. Society and religion shape what we believe. Listen, I asked my kids a question a few weeks ago, and I said, I know y'all have seen this on TV or y'all seen this elsewhere. What do you think about it? All right. And my daughter said, that's wrong. My son said, I don't know. It could be right. And I had to teach them that oftentimes what society places on us as being right is not right. And oftentimes, what society places on us as being wrong may not necessarily be wrong. We have to have discernment as to what we see and how we interpret what we see, right? And oftentimes, here's my knock on church people. Oftentimes, church people, we expect church out of the world. And when you see sinful things on TV and elsewhere, it's almost like you can't believe it, but you should. And here's why you should, because you can't expect the world to behave or have the same agenda as the church. It's sad. It's sad when you can't tell the difference anymore, right? All right. So, what shapes our belief? Background, education, life experience, society, religion. I'm putting in high gear because I'm putting in high gear now. All right. And so why is that important? Why is it important to know what you believe? Why is it important? I've kind of outlined that already because number one, your belief is the foundation of your values, your actions, and your philosophies. But it's important for four reasons and probably more. But your behavior typically aligns with what you believe. Your behavior typically aligns with what you believe. If you're behaving in a way that you really don't believe, then you're out of character. Your behavior typically aligns with what you believe. Remember what Belfort said, the true determining factor of our belief system is not what we're saying, but how we're living. And so your behavior is influenced by your belief. In fact, you will do or you will put actions and practices and strategies in place in your life based off of what you believe. Sam says your beliefs determine your behavior, and your behavior influences your destiny. Boy, man, listen, man, he been reading up on me. I'm coming to that though. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Yeah. Your daily decisions, your behavior is influenced by what you believe. So oftentimes we're so focused on the why that we don't take the time to evaluate what it is we truly believe. He laughed. Right. Here's the second thing. Your speech typically aligns with what you believe. You give someone enough time to talk and they will share with you what it is they really believe about you and about whatever. Scripture says it this way: out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Your speech typically aligns with what it is that you believe. All right. And so you got to be careful because the scripture says that life and death is in the power of the tongue. Now, I'm not one of those, what you call them, attraction people that believe whatever you say happens. And no, I don't believe in it. I don't believe that. Right. But I do believe that you can tear people down and you can build people up, which is what I think that scripture is really saying, based off of what you say out of your mouth. And so let's go back. If I have an unconscious belief that a person who looks a certain way is negative, then I can potentially tear them down with my speech based off of my implicit bias. Look at Trayvon Martin. He went into a gas station, got some Skittles, and because he had on a hoodie, the owner of the station or the worker or whoever it was they had a belief that he was coming to do something negative. Then the guy comes down, chases him down, and shoots him based off of an implicit bias, based off of unconscious belief. Your speech typically aligns with what you believe, and you can tear people down or build people up based off of what you believe about them. You got to be careful what you say. Now, I'm not saying that everything you say comes to pass and all. I'm not saying none of that. I'm not one of them naming and claiming people. But what I do believe is you can tear somebody down and you can build somebody up based off of what you say to them. And that's what that means. Life and death is in the power of time. You can kill someone psychologically based off of what you say to them. And you can raise someone based off of what you say to them. Right? You got to be careful what you're saying. Listen, the depth of your relationships is going to be determined by your belief. The depth of your relationships will be determined by what you believe. That's critical. That's critical. We talk about that every show, that relational intelligence piece. You're going to put certain people in certain places of your life based off of what you believe about what they can add or take away from you. I'm going to say that again, if I can. You're going to put certain people in certain places of your life based off of what you believe they add or they take away from you. And so the depth of your relationships is going to be based off of what you believe. And that's critical. That's critical because some of us are struggling. See, it bothers me when I cut on every preacher and they're talking about haters. They're talking about how many haters you have, and people just repost it and people like it, all the time. And I get it. The Bible ain't talking about haters all the time. And but people talk about that because it appeals to our lack of relational intelligence. It it appeals to our lack of relational intelligence. See, you wouldn't even know they were haters if you had them in the right place. But you know every thought, everything they say, because you have placed them in the wrong place of your life, and you can see and interact and have them too close to you. And so when the preacher gets up and talks about haters, it appeals to you mostly because your relational intelligence is off. You're out of balance. You got to put people in the right place. You got to put them in the right place. All right. And so the depth of your relationships is based off of what you believe. Listen, the last one is this: the purpose of your work is based off of what you believe. And see, for so long, I believe that I gotta focus on my why. Focus on my why. Focus, and I think you do. But your why is driven by your belief. I remember I was in this program, this leadership program, and we had to do a presentation at the end. You know, in education circles, we always talk about focusing on your why, focusing on your why. And I got up and I said in front of the executive directors, and I said, listen, I believe you can start with your why, but if you don't know what you believe, you're going to end up coming right back to it. Right. And while it's good to start with your why, I think you need to start with what you believe. And when I said that, it was almost like I stood up there and cussed. Right. Because I said something that was opposite of what they were saying. I don't disagree with starting with why. I've taught that you start with why. But now I'm understanding that your belief is what drives everything that you do. Your why can drive you too, but your belief system. And see, you can have the wrong why if you've got the wrong belief. It's critical. It's critical because even God, I don't want to say dumbs it down for us, but he makes his relationship with us based off of something everyone can do. Believe. Right? Right? That's John 3:16. Believe. Right? And so belief is critical. Belief is critical. Remember those four things. Why is it important that you know what you believe? Because it's going to determine or it's going to shape your behavior. It's going to shape your speech. It's going to shape your relationships, and it's going to shape the purpose of your work. Right? Right? It's going to shape the purpose of your work. Shots fired. Listen, and man, listen. I don't even want to go off on a tangent, but I'm at that place where, you know what, I don't have time to bite my tongue. I'm not going to disrespect anybody now. I'm not going to be disrespectful, but I'm not going to hold back on what I believe in the right setting. Right? I'm not going to just come out and say anything I believe, but if you ask my opinion, if you give me an opportunity to share, I'm going to share it. Right. And I'm going to share it in a respectful way. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Right. But I think there's so many organizations that are basing their stuff off of their why. But no one can articulate the belief statement. When I send a weekly email to my staff, and when I send that email, at the bottom of that email, every week, every Friday, I have what we believe. This is what we believe about education. This is why we're educating. Is at the bottom. I give it to them. Every time they see that email, they're going to see that belief statement. Because if you believe this, then your why is easy. You know why you're doing it because you believe a certain thing, right? All right. So we've talked about the types of belief, 3 types of belief, not all of them, just 3. We've talked about what shapes our belief: background, education, life experiences, society, religion. We talked about why it's important, but you know what we do here on the Practical Purpose Podcast, the last few moments, I need to give it to you in the Bible. I need to give you, because I believe that the Bible is a solid foundation, right? It's a solid foundation. And so it's not enough for me to just talk about it practically. Let me show it to you. Let me give it to you in the Bible very quickly. And in Matthew 9:28 through 30, the text gives us some interesting things about belief. Now, belief is all through the Bible, but I want to pull just this little bit out in Matthew 9, 28 through 30. It says this: when he had gone indoors, talking about Jesus, the blind men came to him, and he asked them, "Do you believe that I'm able to do this?" They said, "Yes, Lord." Then he touched their eyes and said, "According to your faith, let it be done to you." And their sight was restored. Jesus warned them sternly, "See that no one knows about this." All right. So here in the text, there are three things, three components, three pillars of belief right here in the text. Three things that belief does is right here in the text. Here's the first thing that it does. Belief, Sam, determines trajectory. I'm going to say that again. Belief determines trajectory. How do we know that? Because in the text, it said that the blind men came to him. That's interesting. That's interesting. He goes in the house and the blind men go after him. They go to him. They're blind, but they knew how to get to him, right? They're blind, but they knew how to get to him. How did they know how to get to him? Their belief put them on the right trajectory. It put them in the right direction. Right. My pastor said Sunday, it was pretty good. My assistant pastor, he said everybody, a lot of people are in a season of transition. And that's why I wanted educators on here, because we're going back to school, right? It's transition. Transition, Sam, is about trajectory. It's about changing your trajectory, and trajectory is more important than velocity. Trajectory is more important than speed, because you can go quickly in the wrong direction. Trajectory is more important than velocity, because if I'm going in the right direction, it doesn't really matter how fast I'm going. Eventually, I'm going to get to the destination. And these men in Matthew 9, their belief had them find Jesus, put him on the right trajectory. Listen, we are too focused on how fast we aren't moving where God doesn't even want us to go. We are too focused on how fast we aren't moving where God doesn't even want us to go. You know, one thing about the Bible is sometimes the Bible doesn't even talk about speed. It just tells us to go somewhere, tells us to do something. It's talking about getting in the right place. It didn't matter how long it took the prodigal son to come back home. He just had to turn and get on the right trajectory, and he would have eventually got back. Belief determines your trajectory. You're going to go a certain direction because of what you believe. Sam says trajectory over speed. Yeah. You got to be going in the right direction. Listen, you can be moving and not progressing. You can be moving and not progressing, right? You can be moving and not progressing. Why? Because you can be moving in the wrong direction. So many of us are active. We're doing things, we're moving, but we're not seeing any progression in our life because we hadn't taken the time to really examine what it is that we believe. Do I believe that I can do what it is that I'm saying I can do? Do I really believe it? Right? See, you go into your classroom and you teaching every day, teaching your heart out. Right? But your belief, the reason why you may not be seeing progress is because your belief system or your belief about who you are teaching is off. And when you adjust your belief about who you're teaching, what you're going to do is adjust your strategy on how you teach them. Right? That can be for educators, that can be for fathers, for mothers. You've got to adjust your belief about who you're trying to get your point across to. Listen, belief determines trajectory. I'm looking at the clock. Listen, the second thing we see in the text is that belief determines decisions. Belief determines decision. How do you know belief determines a decision? Because he says, do you believe that I'm able to do this? They said yes. They had to make a decision to believe. Your belief will determine your decision making, right? And if you're making bad decisions, you need to re-examine what you believe. If you don't constantly evaluate your belief, you won't recognize your decisions. I'm going to say that again. If you don't constantly evaluate your belief, you won't recognize your decisions. Listen, one thing that I've started doing is I've created in my phone a note that is a self-reflection note. Right. And I have things on there. It's like 4 or 5 things. It's like time management, fiscal responsibility. But and every night before I go to sleep, I give myself a rating from 0 to 5, 5 being good. I did good in this area today. I didn't do good in this area today. Right. And because I'm willing to evaluate that, because I'm willing to evaluate my belief, when I wasn't willing to do that, I would look back at my decisions and say, I got to do better. I didn't move based off of what I truly know that I believe. So instead of me trying to change behavior, I change belief, or I evaluate belief to determine how I behave in whatever area that is. And oftentimes for me, that was time management, that was financial, that was whatever I was doing to squander something. I need to evaluate what I really believe about that. Right? Belief affects your perception of reality. PK and Tan, belief affects your perception of reality. Listen, you're going to perceive things a certain way based off of what you believe. Right? You remember when Caleb and Joshua and the other 10 spies went to spy out the land? And Caleb and Joshua said, we can take it. That's why God only allowed them two to go in. Their belief shaped the reality. The reality was there were giants there, but their reality was we can take them. The other 10 didn't believe that. Right? Your belief affects your perception of reality. All right. So in the text, we see that your belief determines your trajectory. We see that belief determines your decisions. But here's the last thing. Here's the best thing. Belief ultimately determines, Sam, your destiny. Right? Because it says that and their sight was restored. Right? Their sight was restored. Your belief determines your destiny ultimately. Right? You will go where you believe you can go. I'm going to say that again. You will go where you believe you can go. Right? That goes back to that whole Caleb and Joshua and the promised land thing. You can get in there if you believe that you can get in there. You've got to evaluate your belief. Right? It says in Matthew, it says that their sight was restored. And it was restored based off of what they believe. Right. Listen, and it's critical. I don't even want to deal with that. But it says that it was restored, which means they had it before. And something happened and they lost it. But they believed that they could get it back. And for some of us, we've lost something. Maybe it's persistence. Maybe it's happiness. Whatever it is, we've lost something and it's not coming back until you believe you can get it back. You've got to believe that it can be restored. That was their destiny. Restoration was their destiny. And they believed it. Listen, belief drives purpose. Purpose drives strategy. And the execution of strategy leads to success. Belief drives purpose. That's your what do I believe? Purpose. Why do I believe? Or why? Why am I doing it? Your purpose drives your strategy, and the execution of your strategy will lead to success. That's where we've been missing it. That's where we've been missing it. We've got purpose. We know why we're doing it. but we don't have the drive to do it like we're supposed to because we don't have a belief set. We got a belief statement. Every organization you see, they got a belief statement, right? But do they believe the statement? Right? You go to pull up at Chick-fil-A. You don't know what Chick-fil-A belief statement is. Some of y'all gonna Google it right now. I ain't even Googled it. I don't know what it is. But based off of how Chick-fil-A treat me, I got a feeling that service is somewhere in what they instill. Good service is somewhere in what they believe. I can see it. B says only believe. Listen, boy. Listen. Where the E flat? Where the Hammond B3? Listen. I don't have to know Chick-fil-A's belief statement to understand that somewhere they embed good service in what they teach people. And so your purpose, your why, and what you continuously do as a husband, as a father, as whatever professional, as an educator, whatever it is that you continuously do needs to align or should align with what it is you believe. Your belief drives your purpose. Your purpose drives your strategy. The execution of your strategy will lead to success. Listen, in that text, Matthew 9, 28 through 30, you can go back and read it if you get a chance. They give us three things. Belief determines trajectory. Remember, trajectory is more important than speed. Trajectory is more. I'm teaching my son some things about basketball, and I'm teaching them from the aspect of you're not going to always be faster than the other person. But you got to know how to use angles and lines and geometry to get to a spot before they get there. And it's not always about how fast you are. Oftentimes, it's about the direction that you take, right? It's the direction that you take that will allow you to get to your destiny whenever you're supposed to get there. You're going to get there, though, right? And so often we're more worried about how fast we get to things versus the trajectory that we're on. And if you're on the right trajectory, you're going to be fine. It's going to take some time. Position. PK intends his position. If you're on the right trajectory, you're going to be fine. Right? So belief determines trajectory. Belief determines decisions. Belief ultimately determines your destiny. Right? If you are scared to examine what you believe, you are afraid of your destiny. If you are scared to examine what you believe, you are afraid of your destiny. I don't care what area of life you're in. You need to be constantly examining what it is you believe. Constantly. That don't mean you're going to change what you believe, because some things you believe in right. But you need to be willing to acquiesce to the fact that if someone presents something to me that shows me my belief system is wrong, I need to be willing to change what I believe. If you are scared to just examine it, you are afraid of your destiny. You got to examine what you believe if you're really going to become what it is you're supposed to become. And that's what bothers me. And I'm done. But that's what bothers me a lot about religion and church folk is that you can grow up in a certain denomination, and when you really examine what you believe, if you were to go to the text, 40% of it ain't accurate. What you just believe it because someone you revered so highly taught it to you, and you don't want to face the fact that they just taught you what they knew. They were sincere, but they were wrong. And you got to be willing to say, you know what? I need to evaluate what I believe. Don't mean I can't rock with you. I can't fellowship with you if we believe differently. That don't necessarily mean that, depending on what it is. But I need to be willing to evaluate that. Listen, here's your closure. When you think about evaluating your belief, you also got to go back to that definition of belief that talks about your subjective attitude and having a stance. There are certain things that I will evaluate, but when I know that what I'm evaluating is right and my belief is right, I'm not bending. And those are some things that deal with your moral compass and your moral standards, right? There's some things, I'm not going to touch those things tonight, but there are some things that I'm not going to bend on. I'm going to take a stance because of my belief, but it doesn't mean that I'm not willing to evaluate my belief. I'm going to evaluate it over and over and over, right? And I'm going to use a firm foundation to evaluate it, right? Listen, here's your closure. I want you to pick 2 areas of your life, and I want you to write belief statements. Just 2. For example, you might pick fatherhood. What do you believe about being a father? I want you to really think about that. What do you believe about being a mother? Like, what is it that you believe about it? Because what it is that you believe is going to determine how you treat your kids. It's going to determine what you expose your kids to. Right. I want you, I'm giving you an example. You don't have to do parenting, but that's just one. I want you to take 2 things, and I want you to write belief statements. What's your philosophy on it? What do you believe? For example, my belief when I talk to leaders, when I coach them, I tell them you need a belief statement. That's one of the first things that we do when I coach them is you need a belief statement. See, my belief, I believe everyone can be led if they're in the right environment with the right opportunities and resources. That's what I believe about leadership. If they're in those, if they'll have those 3 components together, they can be led. Might not be by me, might not be in my organization, but they can be led. I believe that about education. All kids can learn if you give them the opportunity, the right environment, and the right resources. That's my philosophy. I believe that. But then I want you to go further, and I want you to pick 2 things that may be personal to you. Maybe it's parenting, maybe it's marriage, maybe it's being a grandfather, a grandmother, whatever it is. Pick it, and I want you to write a belief statement. What is it that you believe about this? And once you write your belief statement, you start living and taking actions, placing value on what you're doing based off of that belief statement. Right? What do you believe? That's critical. That's one of the problems that we've gotten to in our society is there's too much gray area. Nobody can tell you what they really believe. Right? What do you believe? Listen, I want you to like, share. I want you to subscribe. I want you to send this out to as many people as you possibly can. Send it out. Let them know that this is something that can help them. If it blessed you, if it helped you, share it out with as many people as possible. Because what you believe is critical, especially educators. What you believe before you get in that school building, stand up in front of them kids is critical to how you're going to be able to move those kids. But here it is. It's not just critical to what you're going to do for them. If you constantly evaluate your belief, that's going to determine how much burnout you receive, how tired you get, and how much drive you're going to have when you get to that place of being tired, when you get to that place of struggling. Go back and evaluate your belief. You can evaluate your why. You can evaluate your purpose. You can evaluate why you do what you do. But it's even more critical, and it's even more difficult. And I think I've proven that in this podcast. It's even more difficult to evaluate what you believe. All right. So we're gonna be back in a few weeks. I don't know. I've been on sabbatical. I've been on hiatus for a while. But we're gonna be back in a little bit. And we're gonna be talking about something different. But I want you to share this out. Belief is so critical. Belief is so powerful. Belief is so important in every aspect, every area of your life. This is Dr. Williams signing out from the dungeon. Y'all be good. Enjoy the podcast? Listen, like, share, and subscribe. Go to YouTube. Basic Wisdom with Dr. Brian Williams and subscribe to the channel so that you will know anytime something else is coming out. Did you know that Basic Wisdom is comprised of 3 different components? We do practical life teaching. That's what you see on the Practical Purpose podcast. We do professional development. We come out and we train people. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. Doesn't matter what type of organization. We come out and we do professional development. And listen, if you want to go to the next level in any area of your life, you need a coach. We do leadership coaching at Basic Wisdom. Go to the website, basicwisdomllc.com. Tap in because it's something there that can bless you.